So I'm going to show you one way that I cut my lob, and it's actually all going to be done on dry hair. So this is a really, really long one. We're going to take some length off this and take it a little bit shorter. And then I'm also going to show you some of my favorite little styling tricks. So first off, let's just talk about, I made these little pictures for you guys today. Let's just talk about long bob. So typically a long bob is going to sit maybe like just touching the shoulder or like right here at the collarbone. And I would say it's going to probably hit like right above the shoulder down to the collarbone. So for a lot of clients, that is considered a long bob. So we can see here, these two I have together because they can have a fringe. Typically, they don't have a fringe, but there are options for that. So here's like a swoopy, you can barely see it because it softly swoops into her fringe. But then this one is so cute too with like a little wispy straight across fringe here. And then I've noticed, so I've been checking out trends, and with lobs this summer, I find obviously these are some red carpet looks, but a lot of women are starting to like tuck the one side and style. So today in the styling, I want to kind of show you where I go with that. And then these are some of my favorite too. So these are all parted down the center. Today we're going to work off a little bit of a side part, and I'll talk about parting when I get into the cut. Sorry, the reflection of the window. But here's one with a little bit of texture, sleek, sleek again, and like a little bit of wave. They're not too curly anymore. Like there's not a ton of curl. It's more of like this little bevel at the end. So I'm going to show you how I do that with a flat iron. But one thing I want to point out with these long bobs is that you'll notice that even though this has texture, texture does not mean layers. So with a long bob, I remember when I was first learning how to do this haircut, I would want to put round layers in it, right? But what that does is it kind of creates like too much wispiness at the ends. And so if you notice all these long bobs here, they have really strong lines at the base. And there's a lot of density and thickness and almost like heaviness at the base. So I want to show you how we can add texture, which is a little bit of undercutting and product rather than like layering it to add texture, because as we layer, we start to thin out those ends, and that's not what we're going for in these long bobs. We want a really heavy line here at the base. All right, so let's get into that. Okay, so why I want to show you how I cut this on dry hair is, think about a typical haircut appointment, right? Your client comes in, you take them to the shampoo bowl, you wash them, you condition them, you take them back, and you start to cut their hair wet. Now, I would probably say 95%, I'll go out on a limb here, don't hold me to it, but probably 95% of stylists do that. That is their pattern behind the chair. Unless you are maybe compartmentalized stylist where you're only doing hair cutting. But a lot of us like do the color and the cut. So obviously, if we're doing color, they're going to be shampooed before they come back to their chair. But what if like a way to set yourself apart is like, this thought kind of like actually reignited yesterday. I had a new client in my chair, and she was so excited to see the way that I cut hair because she's been going to the same stylist for 15 years and she moved. So she was really excited. So I was kind of explaining my process, which she did take off some length. So I cut that wet, but then I blow dried her all the way out, and I did the rest of the haircut dry, which she's like, oh my gosh, I've never had that. And I explained why I did that. So one of the reasons I like to cut on dry hair, let me start sectioning here, is that it kind of like sets you apart. Not everyone cuts on dry hair. They might do a couple like, I don't know, signature things at the very end, but it's not like a majority of the cut. So one, it piques an interest in our clients, and it gives us an opportunity to just give them something different, explain our whys behind the chair, which increases trust with your clients and then increases retention. So when your clients trust you, the more likely they are to come back to you. Oh my gosh. Okay. So all I'm doing is sectioning ear to ear. Now I washed this mannequin last night and then I let her air dry for the most part. And then I just gave her a quick smooth down with a flat iron. So if you're going to do this, basically you're going to do the styling beforehand. So you're going to blow them out. And then if their hair is really wavy or they don't have super straight hair and you need to smooth it a little bit, then you can do a flat iron. Oh my gosh. I'm going to kill this dog that's down here who just took my AirPods somewhere. Okay, so I sectioned ear to ear and I'm gonna get this a little bit more on screen for you. I'm just going to turn her, scooch this over. Oh, gotta love pets. Okay, so all I've done, and I'm gonna move this a little bit so you guys can see, is I've sectioned right behind the ear on both sides. And this is just going to divide and conquer. The other thing I like about this is I'm going to see exactly where the hair is going. So I'm going to this now subsection down. So this subsection here is going to be the amount of hair that you can control. So if they have super fine hair and not a lot of density, you can probably take thicker sections, right? Because they're still only going to be cutting a few hairs. If they have really thick hair or even fine hair, but they have a ton of strands, you're going to have to make these subsections a little bit smaller. So I'm just going to clip that up and repeat on the other side. And I'm just going to go straight across because this isn't going to be like an angled bob or anything like that. I am just going for a straight lob, and I'm just going to comb this into place. Now, if there was a little bend, ooh, let me turn this flat iron really quick. Okay. Okay, plug that in. It's always helpful when you plug the flat iron in. Okay. So if it does have like a little bit of a kink in it or something, you can't just like smooth it out really quick. You do want to make sure that it's pretty straight so that if they go to straighten their hair and they straighten it straighter than you got it and you cut it and it comes out all wonky. But let me grab my scissors. Okay, so let me see if I can get this positioned. I'm going to raise this up a little bit so you guys can see this. Now, I'm probably going to look a little awkward because I want to just make sure you guys can see this. So typically, let me show you, like I'm going to be standing behind my client. She's going to be in the center of my chest. She's probably going to be a little bit lower, and I'm actually going to tilt her head a little bit forward. And that's because as I start to drop this hair down, if I don't tilt her forward, when she comes back up, then some of it is going to be too long and overhang in the back. So I'm going to tilt her a little bit forward. And let's just go to like right here. So we're going to call it like, it's hard on a mannequin, right? Because we don't know, but we're going to pretend like it's going right above her shoulders. Okay. So I'm just going to use, so now let me get her position for the cut. I'm going to just use comb control. So you can use your fingers if that's more comfortable, where you're going to be cutting over your fingers. I'm going to do comb control. So hopefully my arm is out of the way for you guys. And I'm going to use the wide teeth of the comb here so that it looks a little bit more loose at the end. I'm not going to do the fine teeth, but you can, if you want a harder line, then use your fine teeth. This is going to gather the hair even a little bit tighter. Okay, so I'm just going to do comb control, and I'm going to start to put my line in there. Okay, that side's going to be kind of hard, so I'm going to go this way first, and I'm just following it around. This side, because my head will get in the way. Let me just freehand this. Or maybe let me come around here and I'll come back on it the other way. I'll use my comb control. And again, I'm not angling this too much. And with a mannequin, it's a little bit harder. So I'll pick up a little bit of this because their skin doesn't give. But on a person, I promise, like, you'll be able to cut all that hair, no problem. So next, let's see how much we have to drop down here. Again, it's all about how much hair you can control in your comb or your fingers. Can I see my guide there? Yeah, that looks good. I can see my guide. Okay, just gonna clip that out of the way. All right, again, I'm gonna drop this down. It doesn't look like too kinked or anything. So I can see my guide under there. I'm gonna use my comb control again and just keep cutting my perimeter. And obviously when you guys are doing this on your client and not teaching it, it's gonna go a lot faster. So typically I can get this haircut. So with a shampoo, blow dry, haircut, and style, with a style, like if they want wave in it, if they're not leaving straight with straight hair, I can probably do it in like 45 minutes. But if they're like, especially if they're like a reoccurring client where they're just coming to get like touched up, I can probably do this whole haircut in 30 minutes. All right, so I'm gonna drop my last section down, and just like most of our clients, like if they have previous layering, like this isn't gonna be super thick. Like you guys can see exactly where my guide is, or hopefully you can. It's like right there. So I don't know if you can see that shadow or not. So I'll still go in, use a little comb control, and keep cutting my perimeter. So I know it might be a little hard on the sides, and I'm just going right across. Then let me turn this a little bit since this is the last section. Sorry if my arm gets in the way. Let me come right here with comb control. All right, and then too, I can grab my corner pieces and check my length by pulling it back. I feel like this side's a tidge longer. And this is too where I'm kind of probably off camera right now, but where I'll step back and I'll try to check all my lines, get like the full picture. Because sometimes when we're too in close to our client, my mannequin, then it's hard to get like the big perspective, right? So make sure you take a step back. You can turn them in the chair, checking the mirrors. All right, so that looks good to me. Now I'm gonna start going on one side or the other, whichever way you prefer. And this is where I'm going to start to put her head back up straight so that we can get a nice line on the side. And I've created like a little extra length in the back. And then I'm going to take my subsection, and it's going to come from the back because I'm connecting this back section behind the ear with the section in the front. And typically too, I mean, you guys probably see it all the time, like our clients tend to be weaker in here anyways. And so sometimes like we'll cut off an inch, inch and a half in the back, and we'll literally only cut off a half an inch in the front because it hasn't grown as quickly. So here I'll just go in with comb control, or you can even just eyeball this. We're very visual people. And I don't know about you, but like in beauty school, everything for me, I was taught to, everything had to be an angle, or you always had to use finger control. And so it took me a while to learn that, to trust my eyes. Like our eyes are one of our most useful tools behind the chair. So I'm just taking my sections down, whatever I can control. This hair is pretty fine. And I'm just cutting my lines and using my eyes. Then let's let this last section down. And we want to let this fall kind of in its natural fall here for this last section. So if I pull this back, which I can, I'm going to create extra length. So if I want this more even out, then I'm going to let it fall down into its natural fall. And I'm just going to go around and keep shaping up my perimeter and my line. If I wanted to create extra length in the front, this is where I would draw this back and pull it back over here. That's going to create extra length, but I'm just going to keep going around and make this bob perfectly even on the sides to the front. It's not going to be an A-line, so shorter in the back. All right, so there's my one side. Let's spin her around the dance floor. Got to maneuver the tripods. And then this side, I think is only going to be like 2 sections for me. So I'm going to take, especially if it's like the shallow parting side. And I'm going to kind of look from the front here, like here is her nose right here. I'm going to look from the front, and here's kind of my guide on this side, and then I have my guide from this hair back here. And I am going to just freehand this. And I'm going to line it up. All right, next section. Now, if they part their hair on both sides, you're gonna give them a center part and then cut off the center part. If they only wear their hair in one part, cut off their part. Well, don't cut off their part, but part it there and then do the haircut with the part in. You know what I mean? So, because if you were, say she only parts her hair here, and I part it off the middle and then I cut the length, what happens is when she does her part, the length that you had pulled over and cut is going to go over to the other side, and then this side is going to be shorter. So that's why I say if they wear their hair in one particular way, then part it there and cut it off that. If they like to flip it, then you have to cut off the center part. And then they're just going to understand that like when they flip it to one side or the other, they'll have a shorter side, which a lot of people like. It gives them a little bit of freedom. So just freehanding my length here because everything's nice and straight, and it's okay if we don't get it perfect. All right, and then I'm just going to check my bang length here and kind of like connect these two sides and make sure that they're all lined up. And I'm just point cutting that. Okay, so let's get into the texture part. So I've got my perimeter now. Oh, sorry, mannequin, I just ripped out some of her hair with my ring. Okay, so here's the thing. We got a strong line now. When I first started learning, again, how to do bobs, I'm gonna lower this a little bit because I'm gonna start to pull her hair up. I would want to, I'm gonna turn this way. I would want to like pull this up, and I would want to start cutting like round layers and then pull it up and create round layers. Now, what happens is, especially if they have like a really thick like nape section or like right here and then like a thinner nape section, is when you round those layers, it creates like it gets shorter, and because of the round of our head back here, it almost like that short layer creates like a little dome or a mushroom. I used to call it the evil mushroom, and I had one, and I've definitely done it to clients in my first year out of beauty school where they had super thick hair and they wanted like a long bob, and I only knew how to layer. I didn't know how to texturize or internal texturize. And so I would cut the round layer and it would create almost like the haircut I have now, but then they still wanted long hair. So then they had like this mushroom stem coming out, and it just was like silly. So sorry to those clients that I did that to. I think I only did it twice. So, and I definitely had it once, and it was the only time I cried over a haircut. And that was like straight out of beauty school. And I was pregnant. So hormones and a bad haircut were a bad combo. All right, so instead of round layering, what we want to do is we want everything above the occipital to keep its length. Now we might texturize it a little bit, but we want to keep its length so that it can come down over and still help create this strong line. So what I like to do is I section right above where the head starts to curve, and I'm just going to kind of section that hair away and put that in there. And then all I'm going to do now, there's a couple different ways, is I'm going to take a vertical subsection and I'm going to put my layering or my texture in here. So I go underneath, I make sure that I stay at least 2 inches away from the base here so that I don't have any hair sticking straight out. And then I just slide down the hair, and I'm keeping my blade moving at a consistent pace. So almost like a sewing machine. So I'm not taking like big chunks out, which you can if they have really thick hair, but this is just the way I like to do it so that it's just a little bit more consistent. The other thing I like about doing this on dry hair is that on wet hair, this, and if you have a sharp scissor, I've actually seen this. I was sitting in a class and I was learning this technique actually, but he was doing it on wet hair because she had a ton of hair. So in the end, it didn't matter. But his blade was so sharp that when he went to pinch down on here, the blade was so sharp, it literally just slid through this whole section and took this whole chunk out. And we were like, oh. Now, again, she had a ton of hair, so it didn't matter, but it happened. So it's another reason I like to do this on dry hair. You have a little bit more control, less slip. And so I just come right on top, surface plane down. Again, my thumb is moving consistent like a little sewing machine. They're just small little cuts as I move down the strand, and I'm starting to create a little bit of texture on the inside, the internal portion of the haircut without taking out too much of the line. So I'm just going to go around this bottom section, especially in this corner, right? Because we all know right behind the ear, this section tends to get very heavy, right? We call it a dog ear, or at least that's what I called it, because they're like these two big floppy portions here. So this is a great technique for right behind the ear. We just take out a little bit of that. So I work that both ways. Now, once I let this haircut down, we're gonna see like where it needs to be loosened up. So if I still feel like I need a little bit movement, I can still do baby surface planing here to loosen up this top section when I let this down. But I'm not layering it because I want this to look thick. Another way, if you wanted a little bit more texture on the underneath, is you can come from under the section and put in a little texture and surface plane out that way. Okay, so that's that. I'm gonna turn this iron on so we can get it ready for the styling. Okay. Last thing on this cut that I wanna show you is when we get to the sides here, this portion of the hair does not have all the hair underneath it that this portion does, right? So we put in a lot of movement. So it's not like, you can still put in some internal layering here, but remember, our clients are a lot finer through here. So we don't want to layer or texturize this too much because the hair is already more fragile here. It's finer here, it's thinner here. So a lot of this is going to already have like a lot of natural layering or breakage or whatever it is. The hair is just more fragile. But again, if you needed to put in a little bit of movement on the underneath because they're a freak of nature and have like a lot of nice like thickness in here, then that's how I would do it. I'd still go underneath and put some movement in. But to be honest, like when I was doing extensions, this is on my long bobs where I would add in most tabs of like my tab extensions, because this was already thick, and then my clients would always be super fine in here. And then if you want to do a little bit more layering, I love to just like keep it simple. We're very visual. Trust your like creativity, your eye, see what you move. Like this is a straightened mannequin, and so she is already gathering some texture, and I just like to pinch and cut. It doesn't have to be so perfect. Trust me, I'm a perfectionist, and it took me a long time to be like free cutting almost, because I needed everything to be universal, symmetrical, lined up. But it doesn't have to be that way. It's okay to be creative too and cut loose a little bit and just trust yourself. It doesn't have to be by the book. And the thing is that no one's hair is exactly the same on two sides, right? It's like that saying with eyebrows. It's like they're sisters, not twins. And even twins are not exactly identical always. So just look at the hair, look at where they're parting. Obviously, if you wanted to add in a fringe, this is where you would go and add it in. I'm going to leave her longer just because I want to put some waves in it now and see a little bit of texture. But that is one way I create texture. Now, if one last technique I want to show you. Say this is her heavy side and she likes a lot of volume, but I don't want to add a ton of layering on a long bob. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a section over that is long enough to come over, and I'm going to take a fine little subsection in here. I'm not going to go into the hairline, but if I wanted to create, let me turn this, some kind of volume here, I'm going to take this fine subsection and I'm just going to cut out some chunks here. Again, I'm leaving this at least 2 inches long, and you'll see these little pieces flop out. And what that does is when the hair comes over, it gives it, again, some little texture on the internal. Also, it's going to push, those little pieces are going to push the top hair out. So you can do that. Just make sure you're not doing this technique too close to their part line, because like say for instance, I took it up here and there's not enough long hair to come over. That hair is just going to stick straight out of their hair. So that's why we leave it at least 2 inches long, so it has some movement to fall over, and it's going to help create some volume in there. Okay, let's put in a little bit of texture. So one way, so like the J-Lo picture I showed you, that was straightened and then all texturized with product, which we can do. But I do want to show you a couple techniques with the flat iron. So nothing's like super curled right now with these long bobs. So I'm going to take some, let's just start in the back actually. Let's just do this. We got 10 minutes. Let's do this. Let me clip this up. And this hair is typically not going to be super long. I'm going to do these, instead of doing curls, I'm just going to do some bevels. So some really loose bevels. I'm just taking thin horizontal sections. I do like to make sure that my underneath is curled under, like towards the nape typically. All right. So it's as easy as that. Just some horizontal sections. I'm going to take another subsection. I just section out a U. All right. And again, this doesn't have to be perfect. That's the thing. It's like none of these are perfect. So I'm just taking horizontal subsection again, rock my iron under, rock it on top, rock it underneath. Okay, it's going to create a little bit of wave there. If I wanted to like really mix it up, here, this one I could do a curl, right? So like rotate my iron halfway and then pull, and this is going to give me some texture underneath a different way. Okay, I could rock up first, then under, and then straight down. That's going to give me a little bit of wave that way. So there's lots of different ways to do this. If you keep taking everything in the same direction for the whole head, just keep in mind that it will tend to kind of like move together as one curl once it's all down. Let's do a little bit on this side and around the front. I'm going to do these ones under, on top, rock my iron back, and then down and kind of straight at the ends. So again, under halfway, over halfway, down, and then straight down. And that's going to give me a nice little bend in there. Did I do that side? Yep. Okay. Let me let down another subsection. And so when we're doing this too behind the chair, we want to be teaching our clients how to do their own styling as well. So lately I have been playing with my flat and smoothing iron a little bit more than a curling iron, just because I feel like it's sometimes a little bit easier for my clients to maneuver, or I ask them what they have at home. So if they have a curling iron, then I'll show them how to do the curling iron. If they are only having a flat and smoothing iron, or they think it's a little bit easier, then I'll show them with the flat and smoothing iron. So it's really important for us to practice both ways so we know what we're doing. So there's like a little bit of a curl for me. It's too curly, so I'm going to flatten back out a little bit. But say I wanted to put in a little bit more, I could do another curl. So I just rotate my iron under and then pull kind of slow, and that's going to create some nice texture that way. So to make these like more disheveled and a little bit, you can mix up your techniques. Again, not everything has to be perfect. Trust me, that was like a hard lesson for me to learn. I just accidentally pulled the plug out. Come on, plug. There we go. Okay. And let's do these under two. I am gonna match, see, here I go, like being my perfectionist self. I am gonna match the fronts to each other just because I can't have two sides not match in the front. Okay, let's do this really quickly so I can show you what are some of my favorite products. So I'm just gonna do some little waves again. Again, I don't want this like too curly, where I think like the first summer, right, which was about 3 summers ago now, was everything was curled. And even if there were loose curls, it was all curls. And I feel like we're starting to transition a little bit more into some waves. So let me do this front. All right. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to let me know. I got Michael in the chat. If you have any questions afterwards, feel free to ask me over on Instagram. I'm at Sarah Mac Original, or you can go to Lonza's Instagram as well, and Michael will always let me know if something comes up at Lonza Hair Care, or you can find us here on Facebook always. All right, so that's good. Let's put in a little curl right here. So I'm going to take this section, I'm going to pull slowly, and that one's going to be a little bit more of a wave. And I like these kind of like jagged edges. This is like, reminds me a little bit of that J-Lo look. Okay, so let's talk style now. Now, my go-to, typically always texture spray. So easy. Clients love this stuff. Yes, AX is a blue, it's a blue-green base. It's both. So if you look on the swatch chart for any of the color families, it will actually show you the percentages of each base in each color family. So Always love to go with a texture spray. Tried and true, very simple. Clients love it. Let's talk a little bit if I want to give it more of a piecey look. Okay, this is one of my favorites. Also a very good seller, easy. You want to shake this one up and you can hear the ball. So a couple ways you can do this. You can spray this right onto the hair. What I tend to do is spray a little on my finger and go and piece this out, okay? And I like to clump little pieces together like that, okay? Instead of, it just gives me a little bit more control when I am working with this hair instead of like, say I don't really want it around her base. This just gives me a little bit more control than spraying it all over. And then I can really start to texturize these pieces out and spread them out, piece them however I want. And it gives me, oh, I love that. I love the texture. So this is a good one as well. Air paste, okay? Or I can spray it towards the bottoms and really start to piece this out. I can work it through my hands a little bit and make these a little bit more jagged and pieced together. So that's the thing, is like clients will bring us, maybe I need a little in my hair actually. Clients will bring us pictures and it's like, I want my hair exactly like that. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen that meme. It's like, that's 100% styling. So sometimes it doesn't even have to do with the cut. What our client is looking for is for you to teach them how to style. And when we teach them how to style, it gives us a way to talk about product in a non-salesy way, which I was not a good retailer, to be honest, until I started using Lonza. And I just didn't know how to talk to clients. And really, it's so simple. You just have to show them how to do their hair, and then it gives you an easy way to talk about the products. So last thing I want to show you, and one of my favorite products. So you guys remember the photos where they had it tucked back? So one of my favorite ways, and maybe this is not a styling like tip that you're giving your client that day because they don't want to, like typically when my clients leave their chair, they want to wear their hair for a couple days. So they're not going to want like a super fixed style, but you can always teach them how to do this without putting the product in their hair for, say, they're going out. So the fiber cream, I like this one because it's, well, you'll see when I pull it out, but it's moldable, but it still has a hold factor of 6, which you guys can see, like here is the hold factor right on the packaging. And I have nails, so I typically, you can see my little nail marks in there. I typically take the back of my nail and I put it right on there, and you can see why it's called fiber cream, because it creates little fibers for us. And then I'm going to put it in my hand and emulsify it. Again, it's gonna, you can see why it's called fiber cream. And I'm going to start to like push this back. Again, this is kind of more of a finished look, almost like a little bit of a wet look, but without looking greasy, where they can have it. And this is gonna hold so nicely for them. And then I didn't bring any clips today. I can really start to lay it down on the side they're gonna swoop behind their ear. Hopefully you guys can see that. And when this dries, it's gonna be really nice. And then they can stick a clip in, they can put a little bobby pin in. So this side I want a little bit smoother. Typically I have a little brush, which I forgot to bring with me. So I just use like a cushion brush and I'll start to smooth that in. And the product is going to dry clear, just so we're clear, it dries clear. And then you're just gonna tuck that behind. And then this side, oh, I love that. And that's without a clip or anything, you guys. And like, she doesn't even have real ears to like tuck it behind, but like, just see how the fiber cream like holds it in there so nice. And then she's got this like blunt, nice little texture here. And you can like swoop that forward. And then she's got this like kind of pomped look on this side going off her face, opening up. And then we can bring it back to the front, kind of like that Reese Witherspoon picture. Well, that shape is kind of funny. So we'll bring it down a little bit more. And then, ooh, now she's looking mysterious. That's better. Yeah. So that's